Coalitions increasingly have become a defining feature of Nigeria's political landscape, and often shaping the outcomes of elections and governance. While coalition politics can unite diverse interests and strengthen electoral chances, it has become also raises question about the place of party ideologies in Nigeria's democracy. Too often, alliances are formed not around shared values or clear policy direction, but around the quest for power and survival. This has contributed to the weakening of political parties as vehicles of ideology, blurring the lines of accountability and consistency in governance. With the 2027 elections drawing closer, the question is no longer whether coalitions will emerge, but what they truly stand for. Do they represent a pragmatic way of holding Nigeria's diverse interests together, or are they simply shortcuts that strip parties of ideology and vision? I am Ezenwa Wagu. Welcome to Electoral Reform Half Hour on NTN News 24. This program is brought to you by the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Majeed Dahiru is a public affairs analyst, political commentator, and freelance journalist known for his incisive views on governance, party politics, and electoral matters. He has played active roles in political communication and was formerly the chairman of Communications Committee for the Kogi State PDP Gubernatorial Campaign Council, a position from which he resigned, and continue his advocacy for good governance and true public commentary. I want to welcome you to this evening's program on electoral reform.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your tireless effort at making Nigeria's democracy better.
Thank you. We were in the Electoral Institute's convening around premature campaigns, and I knew you didn't state at the end of the program. I was looking forward to your comments. Maybe you just take a few minutes and share what you think about that before we go into our conversations today.
While it raises some kind of concern about the fact that while governance should be the main focus of those in power and those who are seeking to also displace those in power from their position, campaigns seems to have started earlier than scheduled. But frankly speaking, I think the very attempt to legislate on the regulation of time frame for campaigns in the democracy is one that I consider as anachronistic. It's something you can't realistically regulate or legislate on, because one is a political animal by nature. And so politics is an integral part of democracy. There's no politics without democracy. And from time to time, the polity must remain vibrant through campaigns, through rallies, appraising policies that are in place, considering those that are in the alternatives. It has to be a continuous. For me, it does not affect governance adversely, as some people might want it to look like. For me, it's part of the ongoing conversation about how to simply make things better. Again, it's not something anybody can regulate, really, because what exactly defines campaign? What constitutes a campaign, let alone coming early? So for me, I need to focus more on delivering its core mandate of credible, free and fair elections.
Acceptable elections. Well, I think you hammered on the big question of definitions, political campaigns. At what point is it early, and who is actually complaining?
Exactly.
And I think that's for me. So let's focus now on, the conversation about political parties lacking clear ideology, with defections everywhere. Left, right, and center. Do you think this weakens our democracy? And truly, do you think what reforms is possible to build a stronger formation for our democracy?
I think you were absolutely spot on when you identified political parties as the issue in focus, talking about how to improve on our electoral process and our democracy at large. For a very long time, we focused on the very not so important things. Though they're important, but not as important as what actually constitutes the brain box of a democracy. The political party system is supposed to be the brain box of a democracy. That is where you synthesize ideas, philosophies, if you like, ideologies, if you like, of how to apply the political touch, the political will to deliver on the basic responsibility of government, which is to provide welfare and security for citizens. That is, the political party system is where you synthesize these ideas and the processes that will lead towards translating these ideas into reality. That should be the competition among political parties in Nigeria. But the reverse seems to be the case. Political parties in Nigeria have become special purpose vehicles to grab power at all costs for self-service and not for public service.
And they boldly say so.
They boldly say so.
That is a special purpose vehicle.
But, again, there is a reason, there's a fundamental reason for this. And that is why it will be good to stay on this conversation for a long time so that we can begin to have fundamental solutions to fundamental problems that ails our democracy. I think the current political leaders across our political lines are operating inside the box. Mm. If you look at our democracy critically, it is a function, or rather the politics of our democracy is a function of the configuration of the structure of the Nigerian state. Right from independence, you will observe a tendency where the federating units in Nigeria appears to have been structured along ethno-geographic fault lines, and rigidly so. Subsequent restructuring, state creations, 12 state regions, 12 state structure, 19 states, 21, 36, 30 before 36, and then the FCT follows that pattern. So what has happened is that ab initio, because of this configuration along ethnic and geographic fault lines, politics assumed a coloration of ethnic and religious identity from the beginning. And Nigerian politicians have been playing identity politics since 1960. And the reward system for identity politics is corruption. It's patronage at the expense of the state. Mm. And because of the primitive nature of our politics, which is identitarian in nature, the purveyors of this kind of politics are not akin to obeying any form of rules at all. They are not oriented to obey rules. They cannot build institutions. They cannot build anything because the ultimate aim is to get power and then share the, if you like, the goodies, the booties of electoral warfare. So you see that political parties increasingly become bereft of clear-cut, and as you described it, pragmatic solutions that can harmonize our diversity around the common agenda for development is absolutely not there. And this political party is the one that produces your president, your vice president, your governors, your legislators. So the focus of those who are in power has become what international scholars call prebendalism. Look, they think they have an entitlement as appointed or elected political officers to their sphere of influence, personally and for their sections. And it's been normalized in our politics. This has to change fundamentally. So
they've created fiefdoms,
arising from this system.
Yeah.
Now, for this to be defeated or challenged, will be for Nigerians to realize that this is the problem we have. Because I just want that most Nigerians criticize those in power. And when they get they do exactly the same. Because they do not seem to understand that the problem that's affecting them when they were outside is the same thing they are doing now that they are inside. So we need a coalition of the willing among Nigerians who are enlightened enough and can come together and evolve a political system. No matter how, you can start small.
So let me just hold you there. Yes. Sorry that I'm cutting in, that I'm butting in. But as we approach 2027, there is renewed conversation about opposition coalition.
Yes.
And these coalitions are ordinarily supposed to be built on shared
ideal for nation building.
Yes, but and policy goals, do you think Nigeria's coalitions are driven by ideology?
No, absolutely
or
not.
simply survival?
Absolutely
What
not.
will make them sustainable?
The thing is, Nigerians now, you see, we must break ranks. Like I said, a lot of us, we are born into a system that we do not think outside of it. But it is time to start thinking outside of these systems. So it is disappointing that in 2015, a coalition came together to take power from the former ruling party. And we thought they were going to be different. That was an opportunity to consolidate on our democracy. Yes. Unfortunately, the APC assumed the same collaboration with the PDP. They are made up of the same elements. The same things happened. Now we're having a coalition now. Nigerians are not as enthusiastic as they should be because they have already seen that it is the same of the same. A group of politicians are angry from both the PDP and the APC of being left out of the table where patronage is being dispersed, if you like, the national cake. And so they are coalescing around platforms again to seize power. And in the many weeks that they have been in existence, not one policy alternative position has been put forward. Either on first subsidy removal, flotation of the naira, or even the change of the national anthem has not resonated with them to say, okay, we're going to revert to the old one or to the new old one, but what that may be.
If they think that's fundamental.
Exactly. You know, as basic as that, yes. It should have been an issue for conversation. As we speak, what all we hear is, these ones are bad, we're going to come in and make it better, without giving any precise detail of the hows, the whens, and all other, measurable outcomes. It's not existing. It's about paragraph for self-service, using the same old pattern. So I think that if Nigerians become aware that this is not how political parties should function, absolutely not. We've seen from other jurisdictions, we've seen how political parties function. In Ghana here, in South Africa, and other third world countries in Africa, they are doing far better than we are doing. But for that to happen, something fundamentally must have to give way. You see, as Nigerians, we have to come together through a coalition of the willing.
I like this coalition of the willing.
We must overcome the menace of identity politics. It's fundamental.
But I thought that in the conditions for which parties are formed, that it's been put in there that you have to have national identity.
National, not ethnic or religious.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they go to the regulator and present it for a veneer of nationalistic party and then descend into the abyss of identitarian politics. We must have a political party, for instance, that will begin to align economics and other common interests things.
Conversations.
With partisan politics. What we have today is that ethnicity and religion have been aligned permanently with politics, leaving out economic development, social development, and all forms of other collective human development that should be the case. We need to realign it. We need to reconfigure the Nigerian political space. Again, it has to come through a group of people that have arrived at this level of self-enlightenment. To say, look, we need to come together as a people and evolve an agenda for common development.
So do you think the challenge is in our electoral framework?
No, it's not. It's in the fact that even the people, even the citizens, are not sufficiently conscious about the role that they have through the instrumentality of the political party system. And I'm happy we will operate a multi-party system where people can apply to be registered and they are registered. I mean, recently the INEC released a list of 14 newly, should I say, approved.
They are approved. Now they can now be registered.
Exactly. It tells you that the space is open enough.
Yes.
And I'm saying that, except I'm proven wrong, out of these 14 political parties that have been cleared for registration, you might still find out that 14 of them will be same of the old same political parties. And I'm saying we need something different. Look at South Africa, for instance. I can tell you as a Nigerian, just observing and from afar, I can tell you what the ANC stands for. I can tell you what the DA stands for. I can tell you what the Nkoto Social Party stands for.
The EF.
I can tell you what the EF stands for. As a Nigerian, I can tell you. And the leaders of these parties have been extremely consistent on that.
We're going to come back to that. Even in Ghana, we can look at the parties, the NDC
exactly.
and the MPP, and you can also, clearly pinpoint. So we'll go on a break now. Electoral Reform Half Hour continues shortly. Stay with us. Glad to have you back. Electoral Reform Half Hour continues shortly. Stay with us. And we're talking with Majeed Dahiru, a political analyst. And I was happy that you were staying around civil society and citizens' oversight of this whole process. Can you elaborate more on that? With this, your concept of, a coalition of the willing, and explain it more so that it can...
You see, we have got to a point where after 26 years of unbroken democracy, a 26-year-old man is no longer a toddler. You're talking about a young adult that rather should be married and settle down to begin his early stages of life. So our democracy is supposed to be a mature one. And at 26 years old, we are supposed to have democratic consolidation. This can only come when citizens, through CSOs, political parties, labor unions, come together. This time around, it's not about a conspiracy to grab and divide, but a consensus to build and distribute equitably. If you observe Nigeria's political scene critically, due to our identitarian kind of politics, we seem to be competing amongst ourselves for internal resources.
Rather than
building and coming together to compete for global resources. Although Nigeria is supposed to be competing with Ghana, with South Africa, in the continent of Africa for trade and export competitive enterprises. No. What we have is an internal competition for resources through positions. So you have North and South divide, you have sort of dichotomies. We should have overcome that by now. We've been independent since 1960. We've been a democracy for 26 unbroken years. By now, the CSOs, labor unions, and other interest groups are supposed to be coming together to now look at how to correct this fundamental drawback on our democracy. And how do you do that? First, the constituent members of this coalition I'm talking about must be willing to overcome, to rise above their own pettiness of tribalism and religious bigotry. And understand that as a people, we need to come together and put the best foot forward to serve. Because leadership position in Nigeria is supposed to be service, as prescribed in the Constitution. But now, leadership position is no longer about service. It's about to be served. So we need to flip it around. Service. So we put our best foot forward on who can best serve the collective interest of our collective economy, security, and environmental needs in a given structure within the federating units of the country. Which means, if for instance, it will require an Okonkwo to be governor of Kano within this arrangement, his Nigerian name should qualify him, and so be it. If a Murtala will emerge as the governor of Anambra based on these set rules, so be it. It's about leadership. It's about service. However, except we are willing to kind of commit class suicide across the board to say, look, we're going to give away our ethnic privileges, tour privileges, religious privileges.
But the things you play, they are only deployed in the service of evil. Whether they are religion or ethnicity, they don't serve public good. There is no time they are deployed.
Yes.
So it is not, the challenge is not really ethnicity. It may not even be religion. It is the use of it.
I think the challenge is not ethnicity, but ethnicism. Ethnicism. Religionism. That is the weaponization of ethnicity.
That's the point that I'm making.
Exactly. So,
because, for instance, you could be talking about Christian, Muslim when you come to Nigeria. But you can go to Anambra State and then it is reduced to whether you're a Catholic or you are an Anglican.
And that is why we must bridge this gap across. But the intent is this. Nigerians tend to vote along ethnic and religious lines because they believe that one of their own is better to be in position. Whereas one of your own is the person that can serve your interest. Whether or not he worships in the same shrine with you. But this is the role.
Or you drink from the same pot.
But this is the role of a political party to bring about this realization. And that is why political parties order should have public enlightenment arm that all around the year are churning out fact figures and persuasive messaging to convince you to be a whole citizen in the first place. Because let me tell you the truth. Only citizens can drive democracy properly. Tribesmen cannot.
I agree with you. So let's quickly, because of the time that we have, do you think Nigeria can ever evolve into a democracy where coalitions are built on ideology and policy rather than ethnicity, religion, and region?
Nigeria can, because we are among the committee of nations. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with the Nigerian. The problem is nobody has offered Nigerians an alternative path to doing things better. And that's what I'm saying. You need a coalition now, a consciousness that can say, look, we are one people fundamentally, and because we're one people, we are now trying to overcome and transform from being a country of tribesmen to a nation of citizens. Because tribesmen cannot effectively run democracy. They will corrupt it. They don't obey rules. They don't obey the constitution. That is why if you look at the Nigerian constitution, it has been observed more in breach than in compliance. I'm not one of those who talk about the electoral reform so much or constitutional review. It is clear, for instance, in the constitution that we have a third tier of government. But governors across political party lines, across the state of the federation, are united against the survival of the third tier of government. Even the Supreme Court has even ruled,
and
it has not been,
and they have worked to subvert it.
It tells you that it's not about the law; it's about those operating it. But we have citizens, because a citizen cares about others as much as he himself. He desires for others what he desires for himself, and will do unto others what he wants others to do unto him. That is the vision of a citizen. You need to transform Nigerians from tribesmen to citizens before democracy can work for us effectively. And it is possible.
I like that optimism and the catch that it is possible, and it's that optimism that is putting on this program that we're having. Majeed, I want you to look at the current debate in the National Assembly about conducting all elections in one day. That debate is on, and several other conversations that are around what that people think can improve election diaspora and the rest of them. It's not easy to have you on this set, and thank you for creating that time. So just run us through what your thoughts are about some of the contending issues that are open for reforms as we...
Honestly, it's a good idea if it's possible to conduct all elections in one day. The way we are doing now is also not a bad idea, but I fear that no matter how lofty a legislative proposition looks like, when it comes to that implementation, we'll find ourselves again tomorrow talking about how to reform the Electoral Act to make room for staggered elections, because somebody somewhere would have done a lot of damage to what otherwise should have been something that should bring improvement to our polity. And for me, it's no longer about the law so much. It's about the operating system. Any of these systems are desirable. Anyone is good. What is the integrity of its operation? Will people abide by the rules, the spirit of the rules, the intent, and the letters? Are people able to uphold, players able to uphold these rules? You are an electoral veteran globally. In America, for instance, electoral officials are even partisan. They belong to political parties. But a member of the Republican Party will not add one vote to the Republican vote where it is not properly earned, even when he or she is in charge of counting the vote and declaring the results. Integrity of the system. That is what is most important.
I think it's a shared vision for us. But as we coast home now, just share your concluding thoughts on what you think could be the relationship between coalition politics, party ideologies, and the future of our country's electoral.
No, fine. But by the time you have sanitized political platforms that are reflective of the true ideas and elements of developmental democracy, your electoral reform agenda will now become internalized and people-driven. You no longer need INEC to win the big stick. Neither will you need the National Assembly to continue to think out the law, because people have already owned it. Absolutely. And understand that, look, it's not winners taking all. It's about simply expressing your own and allowing others to express theirs. So even when the ballot box are over to you as a political party member, you will not add a single vote, because you know it will distort something in the entire ecosystem that will come back to haunt you. That is all we need, that kind of enlightenment.
Thank you, Majeed. This is where we draw the curtain on this episode of Electoral Reform Half Hour. And we wish to specially thank Majeed Dahiru for your time and contributions on the program. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Electoral Reform Half Hour is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. We are live every Saturday from 8:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. 2:30 p.m. on same station. Thank you for watching. I am Ezen Wawabu.